So we next have Marta Agostinho. So she is the executive director of EU Life, and she's been on this leading position in EU Life now for 8 years, and she's done an amazing job. And she did a PhD in the life sciences, and then was in different managing positions, communication, training, funding, I guess, in different organizations until she started in EU Life, and she's been there ever since 8 years ago. And she's, as I said, doing an amazing job. Marta, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Monica. Hello, everybody. Dear Monica, dear President of the European Research Council, dear Manuel Aleixo, representing the European Commission DG RTD here, dear invited guests and colleagues who decided to join us in this celebration, dear directors of the EU Life Institutes, dear colleagues and friends from our EU Life universe. This is an happy day. We are celebrating 10 years with such an exciting program. And I got the easiest task of all, to summarize 10 years in 10 minutes. So, to keep my math simple, I will do it in 10 keywords. And the first one is, of course, daring. So these 10 keywords aim at taking us into a chronological journey, okay? And as we have listened from Louise and Joe, daring is the first word because at the beginning there was nothing. And not so many people believed in this idea. Some did not believe. So these are the pioneers. And I agree, they are not so many, but look where they took us. And I do have a strong memory from the early days. So I myself joined EU Life in December 2014. And my first strategic meeting was at BRIC in Copenhagen in spring 2015, where, by the way, I was asked to deliver a strategic plan of EU Life that we were obviously not ready to approve. Anyway, my memory is related to this, because I do remember there were the directors and the senior managers of the institutes, and we were discussing, we really want to do science policy. We want to have a voice in Brussels, but we don't know how. What do we do? Which doors do we knock first? Which expertise do we need? So this was the beginning. We started from scratch. My second word is, of course, collaboration. It's never enough to mix collaboration with EU Life. Because the biggest challenge we had at the beginning with the famous Star Alliance plane from Jonathan, it's our biggest asset, the EU Life spirit, which is basically a poetic way of saying, highlighting our highly collaborative nature. We do share what we know, we do work together, and we do put in practice, at least partially, our proclaimed values. My third word is, of course, curiosity-driven research, or fundamental research, or excellent research, or discovery-driven research. You choose your own word. Because it's our raison d'être, right? And it's our biggest contribution to the world. But allow me today to use curiosity-driven research in a slightly different way, as an analogy for EU Life itself. You know, I have a sweet tooth for analogies, because actually it was an analogy that landed my first job in EU Life 8 years ago, as several colleagues keep reminding me. Anyway, why is EU Life like curiosity-driven research? First, we have an exploratory nature. We progress based on evidence and exploration. Piloting and failure are part of our nature. Second, teamwork. We work in teams, actually literally speaking, but we work in teams, and we are highly collaborative. Third, we have a huge impact into our institutes and scientists. even though many often this impact can only be measured qualitatively and in the long term. Fourth, we are an amazing, successful story of knowledge transfer. We came the whole way from idea to product. We are on the market. And fifth, last but not least, we do live in very short funding cycles. The other point I wanted to make today is that as any other mature organization, we already experienced things that we would rather not have experienced. We lost many battles so far, and we will keep losing battles because it's part of the game. And our institutes, some of them at least, have lost important things, important chunks of core funding. They even have lost the membership to the European Union or autonomy. But the biggest and most traumatic loss of all was Michael Wakelam in the first weeks of confinement when the world was so scary and dark. On a more positive note, as a mature organization, we also experienced diaspora. You know, we always like to say we are not a closed club. We like to share what you know and our ideas with the rest of the organizations, and we like to share it with the other institutions, with the whole scientific community. This is the diaspora of ULife, the diaspora of our ideas, and fortunately, we have been living that. And recently, we have been having a new channel, which is our alumni, our dear and ever-growing list of alumni, people who were at the ULife, they were founders of ULife, they now work somewhere else, and they take ULife with them. And we are so lucky for that. And on the other hand, sometimes they come to me when, you know, always complaining before because this is not working so well and I'm so frustrated with this now. And now they say, you know, I really miss ULife. I miss the international network, I miss the expertise, I miss the togetherness. So yes, we are doing something correct here. But my point today with diaspora and alumni, etc., is also taking me to this other word, turnover. Oh my God, we have so much turnover in our institutes and in our working groups. We keep seeing people leaving. But that is also good, because we keep seeing people coming in. New talent, fresh blood, new ideas, more diversity. This is amazing. However, it's really important that we try to find the right balance between retaining talent and mobility. And I think funding agencies and governments also have an important role to play in here. What we really do not want to lose as a mature organization is our authenticity and grassroots approach when it comes to science policy. We did our impact assessment last year. We measured the impact of ULife in the last 5 years, and we interviewed several policymakers and colleagues from other advocacy organizations, and several told us, you know, when we hear ULife in a policy meeting, we hear the voice of researchers. This is our strength. This is one of our most cherished niches. I'm coming to the end of my count. This is my last word. It's expansion, expansion, expansion. And we are no longer a proof of concept, right? Many of us joined the pioneers and made ULife. And many want to join us. Many institutes contact us to join us, and we want to expand. And while we are still discussing and will ever discuss the practicalities of the how and when and who, we all agree on the immense opportunities that expansion brings us. My last word is about the future, because today it's really about the future. So my last word is planting. In my 8 years in ULife, I visited our institute so many times. I've seen so many nice, innovative projects, so many incredible pilots, inspiring ways of doing things, also so many problems, so many challenges that we have, and so many things that together we discuss we want to improve. We saw it this morning. So, replying to our own challenge of today, you know, of bringing props and costumes that are futuristic and tells us about the world, I also brought my own one, okay? And here it is. This amazing bow and this fantastic set of arrows. You see them, right? In this glittering bag, the arrows. So I'm putting the bow here. I'm holding my bag of arrows in my bag. And I'm taking one of the arrows. You see it, right? Here. This is not a normal arrow. This is a special arrow, of course. It's U-Life arrow. So it has this capsule here. And in this capsule, we have collected ideas and dreams from U-Life institutes, and we have put it there. These are the arrows we are going to send to the future. And I say we, because I never do anything alone. Besides our community, we have an amazing team at the office. They even do special arrows. So today I'm sending the first special arrow to the future. So I'm holding my bow, I'm adjusting my arrow, stretching the bow, pointing to the future, which is a moving target, as we know, and let's plant the future. Thank you.
Now you know why we say Marta is amazing anyway. Thank you, Marta. It was super nice. So on that note, I invite Manuel Aleixo to come to the stage. Thank you so much for being here. And Manuel is head of Unit A2 of ERA, Spreading Excellence and Research Careers in DG Research and Innovation, European Commission. And he previously was Assistant to Director General of DG Research and Innovation, before that member of the Cabinet of the Commissioner responsible for Research, Science and Innovation, Carlos Moedas. Thank you so much for being here with us today. And the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Why, Marta? Why did you have to make such amazing presentation before me? It's difficult enough to represent the European Commission at any place. But to follow your act, I think is going to be difficult. Thank you very much for having me today. Thank you in particular to Monica and to Marta. To be here is a pleasure because I have a lot of contact with EU Life and in particular with Marta, and I will say something about that in a second. But above all, because I'm Portuguese, as you probably have understood. And I used to come a lot to this place, to not in particular to this room, but the big auditorium, to listen to concerts when I was a teenager. And since the president of the foundation isn't here, I can say that I had a special scheme for getting tickets, but I won't go into that at this point. And so it's really a special place for me to be, and it's really important in a way to know that this institution, and in particular the Institute, is a part of EU Life and is very active and the founding member. Now, we heard that one of the purposes of EU Life when it was founded was to try to understand what on earth the European Commission was doing. And if you find out, please do let me know, because I would be very interested in knowing. But one of the things that I can say is that we work on a daily basis on research policy, on research and innovation policy. And one of the things that we do is to try and develop not only funding programs, of course you all know Horizon Europe very well, and the work programs, and so that's an important part of our job. But we also develop policies. And this is a little bit trickier because for that we don't really have particularly legally binding or constraining instruments. In fact, often all we can do is to bring people together and generate ideas and try to convince people to go in a certain direction. So a couple of years ago, we created a body, a group called the ERA Forum. ERA stands for European Research Area, which is basically the single market for knowledge, for research, for researchers, for data. This ERA Forum brings together member states, as you could imagine, the European Commission, countries who are associated to Horizon Europe, but also stakeholder organizations. And this is very important. It may seem a detail, but the way we usually work in the European Commission is that we develop policy, we consult stakeholders, right? We ask for their positions, and then we take those and we digest in a rather mysterious way, and we come up with something. The way we work in the ERA Forum is quite different because stakeholders are around the table discussing. And this is what I wanted to mention today, that EU Life and Marta are very active stakeholders in this process. What do we do on a regular basis? Well, we implement this ERA policy agenda, the European Research Area Policy Agenda, and the different actions that range from the more traditional European research area activities that you know very well, such as activities dealing with research careers and research assessment and so on and so forth, but also other areas which are a little bit more experimental, more thematic areas such as hydrogen, or we try to push for more discussions, which the member states of course resist, which are about investments and reforms at the national level on research. So this is what we do right now, and again, I underline EU Life is very present and very active, and this is very important for us. But today we're looking and thinking a little bit about the future. I'm not sure I can think outside the box because that's a bit too much to ask of the European Commission, but we do look at the future, and there are two important things more in the immediate future, but which I think will have an impact for the future, and where you could and should have an influence. One, of course, is the continuous development of this ERA policy agenda, of these actions that have the objective of developing a real single market for knowledge. And this is a long-term objective. We will never get there. We will never complete it. We can only work towards it. For example, the question of how, in the minister's speech, how can we help researchers have a better career, in particular early-stage researchers? How do we create good jobs, quality jobs in research? And this is very challenging from the point of view of the European Commission because we have rather limited instruments and certainly no competences to interfere in what member states do at the national level, even institutions in their own context. So we need to be creative and to think about ways to help, ways to develop new ideas, and this is what we do within the ERA Forum with member states and with stakeholders. So this ERA policy agenda, which is being renewed, and we are discussing now the future of this agenda, what new activities, what new actions should we concentrate on, is very important. And it's very important because it's not just the European Commission sitting there, it's also the member states. And we need to tell the member states, this is what we need, this is what you need, not necessarily us, the European Commission. The second area, which I think is very important for you to be aware and to also influence as much as possible, is of course the future framework program. Now, you could think that Horizon Europe is still very young because this is only 2023 and this is a 7-year program that started in 2021, so why think about the next one? Well, we are already thinking about the next program, and we can think that well, if we look at the world today, I think we are going to be confronted with several challenges when discussing the future framework program. Already in the current one, the negotiation was very difficult, and we needed to convince, for example, member states that we needed a higher budget for the program. And today we are at around 95 billion euros, but it was very hard to get there, and it was a long way to get there. The future program in the current world that we live in, can we convince the member states that they need to spend more on research at the European level, let alone at the national level? So this is going to be challenging, and of course we count on all of you to make this case to national governments, to national administrations, and to explain to those who haven't yet understood, there are still some out there, what is the importance of investing in research. That it is an actual investment and not an expense. But we can think that we will have other challenges. For example, today, let's look at what's going on in Europe today with Russia and the Ukraine. You know that Horizon Europe is a program open to the world. So in principle, anyone can participate. And is this openness going to be maintained in the future program? And as scientists, you know how important this is, this openness, this collaboration, because nobody does science in isolation. Can we keep up this openness in the future program? Again, this is something that we can argue from the point of view of the European Commission, but as you all know, we are always suspicious, so you also have to make the case. This is a little bit the challenge that I leave you when reflecting on the future, when reflecting on future policies, when reflecting on future budgets and future framework programs, is do have a very active role and a very active voice. I know that there are many voices talking to the European Commission. We do our best to listen, but EU Life is certainly a voice that we here listen to very carefully. Thank you very much. Any questions, comments, requests? Please.
I would like to know more about the era for careers. Of course, Europe can't, and I think EU-Life should listen to this too, can't do much in individual countries. But the one thing, I mean, I remember hearing it 20 years ago in the initial era discussions, a pension passport for researchers. Is that not something that could be done at the EU level? I mean, if pensions were portable, we would be so much further. I'm sitting next to a victim who lost through that. I have many friends who didn't move, for instance, from the UK to Paris because of that. Is there really nothing the EU can do at least about that?
No, thank you very much for mentioning that, because that is, of course, an important piece of the puzzle. It's not only just incentivizing careers, but it's creating the conditions for what is normally a research career, which is a mobile career, which should foresee this possibility for mobility. A few years ago, we launched an initiative called Resaver, which is precisely addressing what you mentioned. In the beginning, there was not a lot of faith in this initiative, and it's been growing quite slowly, but it's been growing steadily, and more institutions have adhered to Resaver. So now it's present in several countries with several institutions, but what is necessary for this to work properly is to have a critical mass of institutions being a part of Resaver. So this is an appeal that I can leave here, and thank you for mentioning it, is that Resaver is open to institutions joining it and precisely addressing exactly what you mentioned, exactly the problem that you mentioned. It's challenging. It's a very challenging sector to work in, but we've made quite a bit of progress, and this is in fact a responsibility of my department. But when you also ask more broadly, what can we do to help research careers? So one of the things that we're going to do, and we're preparing this right now, we're preparing a pilot project to be included in an amendment to the work program. So this will be approved in principle early next year, and calls should open in around March, is to bring consortia of different entities, and I'm not talking just about universities, but research institutions and, of course, private companies who have research positions. And this is not about promoting necessarily intersectoral mobility, because we also have schemes for that. This is about trying to bring in an experimental way, consortia of entities that have jobs for young or early stage researchers, and to bring these jobs together in a kind of a mini job market in order to provide more opportunities for researchers who are in this group or in this consortium and who might otherwise have to seek a career in other sectors. Of course, we also have intersectoral mobility schemes, both in Marie Skłodowska-Curie, but also in different schemes that we call era talents. But I think we still haven't hit the spot with a measure which really addresses the careers of young researchers. And so this is something that we can do at the EU level without interfering necessarily at the national level, by stimulating entities from different countries coming together.
Can I ask a question?
Of course.
I'll just go
Please.
Sorry. It's a bit to put you on the spot. I'm sorry about that.
Please go ahead.
No, but how do you see, because we had a lot of discussions yesterday about this, what do you see the role of, do you see that is the role of research institutes in the ecosystem of science in Europe? Research institutes like the ones we represent. How do you see us in the ecosystem? What's our role?
Well, I'm not quite sure how to answer that, so thanks. There was one thing which was said earlier, I don't know who said it, and I think has a point, which is there are some sectors that are much more vocal and much more visible. And this is not necessarily the case for us, because of course we work with you. So you are, in a way, our stakeholders. You're our clients in a sense. But somebody was talking about universities who are very well organized and who have very strong groups and organizations working and very vocal. They're also maybe a little bit more dispersed in a way, which is not bad. It's good to have more players, let's say, in the field. But I would say that I think when we talk about research, when we talk about research careers from the point of view of the Commission, and when we ask who are these people, who are we talking about, many colleagues I see thinking spontaneously about universities, and about, not because they're not thinking about you, but because this is the most frequent contact in our contacts with stakeholder organizations. So I mean, again, EU Life is very present, but this is the kind of voice that we need to hear very often.
Thank you very much. It was very good. Okay, so
Anyone else would like to put me on the spot? No.
Maybe, I don't know if is Stefan already on.
Yeah.
We have to change the order, okay? Okay, but we can still take another question because there's one of the speakers missing, if anyone has another question. Otherwise, thank you very much. It was
Thank you very much. Thanks.
very enlightening. Okay, everyone, this was just such an amazing meeting, and this wrap-up at the end was also amazing. And I just have a few words, and then we have something that we want to propose here also. So science as an institution is really at the crossroads, and it's clear that science has to have a much more intimate relationship with society. It is also clear that if we want to defend a knowledge-based society, we really need to have scientists in all corners of human endeavor, and that the science-producing machine really has to cater for much more diverse profiles. So we really discussed yesterday, there was this idea of plurality that Maria Lepkin put forward, that it's something very, very important that we have to have within our institutes. And the question is really, how do we change this? And what we have to do to really build that ideal future that will integrate all the elements that we've been discussing here and that were so well summarized just before, and that exists also in the essays that we received for the Utopian Institute. And I think that the meeting I mean, we did have now a glimpse also of some proposed solutions by some of the students and postdocs, but we don't have I guess, very concrete paths to do what we want to do. Maybe we have that dream that Janus put forward. But one of the things that it was clear, and it was also referred, that we had given to us during this meeting is probably the most precious thing, which is time, or useless time, as we may want to call it, that is really not useless, but you could consider useless time, which is the time to be inspired. And as Jana said yesterday, the medical student from the NKI, that when she could not find a solution, that her father, the mathematician, would tell her to go for a walk, and that example also came forward again. But the idea that we need to have time to actually not just be focused on the day-to-day life, but really think about what we want to have and to explore new solutions. And I think one of the most inspiring things that, and many people were discussing that came from this meeting, it's not a solution again, but it's that whatever solution we want to find, it really needs to involve the young generations. And for me, as a director, I think the most gratifying thing is really that, we decided to have so many young people throughout the conference on stage, and it's so gratifying and so refreshing and so, pointing us into the future. And I think there will be no scientific meeting from now onwards without having them on stage saying what the future will be. So, and I think the essays also pointed us into very interesting directions. I mean, I love the one from Miles, the idea of the stupid question office, or office of the stupid questions, where I was reading it and thinking, as a director, this is what I have to be, It's really be there to listen to what people have to say to improve the place where we work. And it's such a beautiful idea, but also as Catherine and Evandro also put forward this very strong relationship with the society to build the future together. So not just the people, within the meeting, but also these essays point us into what the future might be. So we do have to be bold and try new things and new ways to move forward. And we are really lucky in our institute because they really provide us the independence and flexibility that we can afford, where we can afford to actually try new solutions. And I think we can also from this meeting draw the motivation into that boldness from Alex Jordan that goes from being a scientist to exploring the boundaries with art, or from Georgia just now also exploring the science communication and knowing that you don't know what's going to be next and might be a big abyss, but you just have to move forward. But also from Luis Serrano and Yobari when they started U Life, how bold they were, because now it seems easy, but at the time it wasn't. And it was a huge step forward for all of us that are here, but also of policy of science in Europe. So I think it really is up to us now, in many of us in research institutes, and also other stakeholders in science that were here but are also outside here, to really continue this conversation and have time, useless, that is not useless, time, to explore the avenues and new avenues that we really need to think about new ideas, but also have the pragmatism to actually ensure that we move forward. And it's not just a discussion, but that we can really change how science is done.